Hey my crafty friends, today in the lab I'm going to be doing another denim experiment to see if I can make some large pieces of fabric from some scraps. In a previous video I did some experimenting with denim scraps and made some different, using some different glues to see if I could make bigger pieces of fabric. And some of those techniques worked better than others, but they all made the fabric a little bit stiff because of the added glue. So if you want to check into those experiments, I'll link to that video in the description. But today I'm going to be using a felting technique to make the fabric from the leftover pieces of denim. And I must confess that this was not my original idea. I got it from one of you viewers, so thank you very much. The materials you're going to need are your denim pieces. You're going to need some fusible interfacing, a good pair of scissors. These are my go-to scissors, but I think Fisker also makes a nice pair of fabric scissors. And you're also going to need an iron. To do the actual felting, you're going to need a felting pad, and I don't have an actual felting pad, but you can use other things. Like this is some foam pieces that I have. I've heard people use bags that are filled with rice and different things. If you do a lot of felting, you probably want to invest in an actual felting pad, but if you have something like some foam, you can also use that. I have a little bit of wool roving here that I'm going to be using, and of course you need your felting needles, and I'm just using a single needle for my felting project. The last thing you need is your pattern piece that you want to make the fabric out of, and I'm going to be trying to make a hat out of this, so I'm going to be using a hat pattern that I made in a previous video. And if you're interested in how to make your own custom hat pattern, I will link to that tutorial in the description box. So I'm going to be starting with my side crown hat piece, and you'll notice that this is cut on the center fold. So when I cut this piece, I'm going to have a piece that's twice this size. And the first thing I want to do is cut this piece out of my fusible interfacing. So I've got my piece of interfacing cut here, and I've got the fusible side facing up, and now I would just want to go back and I'm going to place my denim pieces onto my interfacing here, and I want to overlap them just a little bit and also make sure that I'm covering all of the interfacing. And the other thing I want to do is make sure that all of my pieces are making contact with the interfacing at least a little bit. And the more you overlap the denim, the thicker your end product will be, so just keep that in mind when you're laying out your denim pieces. So once you have all of your denim pieces laid out, you want to go ahead and heat up your iron and iron your piece according to the instructions that came with the interfacing. So when you're finished, you should have all of your pieces kind of tacked to your interfacing. They're going to be kind of loose, but you do want them to be at least secured to the interfacing. If they have some loose edges, that's fine. So once I have all of my denim pieces tacked in place, I'm going to go back and I'm going to trim off the excess so that I have my pattern shape again. So I'm ready to do the felting part now, and originally I was hoping that I could just felt the denim to the interfacing, but I wasn't at all successful with that test, so I decided to add in a little bit of the wool roving. And if you've never done felting before, basically the needles have little barbs in them that pull the fibers together and sort of knot them together to hold your piece together. But like I said, it didn't work terribly well with just the denim. So I came up with this kind of just outlining pattern, so it looks like you've kind of soldered or grouted between your pieces to hold the edges down and to hold the fabric into more of a solid piece. So I have a couple of gray colors here. I'm not entirely sure how much I'm going to need. It doesn't take a lot, but I may kind of try to blend these two colors together just so I have a little bit more to work with. And I want to be sure to have my foam pad here. If you have something to protect your fingers, you're going to want to do that because these needles are very sharp and they you can puncture your fingers very easily if you're not careful. So you can't really see the barbs on the needle itself, but it is very thin and kind of easy to break. So you want to make sure that you're pushing straight in and not twisting the needle at all, because you will break the tips off pretty easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add just a little bit of my roving. You can see that it pulls apart really easily. And I'm just going to kind of lay it across where my seams are. And then I'm going to carefully just tack the fiber in place with just a few little needle punches. So you can see already that it's kind of attached to the denim. And then I'm just going to kind of carefully work my fibers into a little line along the edge of my denim piece here. And if I need to, I can add a little bit more of the roving, and you can make your design any way you want to. You could felt in the middle of the denim if you wanted to. I just decided that this was going to be kind of a fastest way to hold my pieces together and just add a little bit more texture to the piece as well. Now this does take a little bit of time, and like I said, you do want to be very careful. If you do a lot of felting, you'll note that people use multiple needles and they work a lot faster, but I'm just being really careful here because I do want just kind of a thin line of fiber around all of my pieces. So that is the whole process. It's very simple and a little bit time consuming. So I'm just going to tack my fibers in place a little bit so I can line everything up, and then I will just kind of work to get my fibers into kind of a nice little tight edge or line around each of my separate denim pieces. So hopefully you can see that the more you work and the more you do the felting, the tighter the fibers are woven into the project. And one of my favorite things about crafting is the part where I can just move my hands without having to think and concentrate too hard. So I of course enjoy the puzzle of figuring out the project and how it's all going to go together, but I also really enjoy the part where I just get to immerse myself in the repetitive process of making something, and that's what this felting process allows you to do. So I've got a few hours of work ahead of me, but like I said, I kind of enjoy that mindless repetitive motion. So to finish this piece took a couple of hours, so maybe not quite as long as I thought it was going to. I did want to mention one last thing. When you're pulling your work off of your mat, it is going to stick through the mat a little bit, and you can see on the back of my piece I have a lot of fibers sticking through, and I just want to finish this and kind of flatten out the piece a little bit on both sides by using a steam iron on the wool, which will kind of help to shrink it up and flatten everything out, just to finish off the look of my piece a little bit more. So it kind of helps to just further felt and crimp those fibers in so that they'll hold your fabric. And you can see that everything is nice and stable now. And this fabric is much softer, I would say, than any of the fabrics that I was able to create with the glue version. So if you're looking for something that you can actually sew through a sewing machine, I think this will work the best. It does take a little bit longer, but like I said, it's kind of that repetitive motion that's sort of calming and relaxing for me. So if you like projects like that, you might want to give this a try. So I'm going to go ahead and make my other pieces for the hat and sew the hat together, and I'll post it on my community tab if you're interested in seeing how the finished hat turns out. Be sure to check the description for more resources and a place to sign up to receive the Upcycled Design Lab newsletter if you like recycling and upcycling projects. If you enjoyed today's content, please click the like button so YouTube will know to show you more of my content, and if you haven't already, I'd love for you to click that subscribe button to join my YouTube community. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.